Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back, and now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. This is your temporary MC, Darlene. Now, if you're new to the podcast series, I just did want to be clear and let you know that Kate Anthony is the host, creator, and founder of the podcast. I'm her podcast editor, and over the last few weeks, I've been stepping in. So today, the episode is brand new and includes a conversation between Kate and her guest, Tracy Poizner. More about that in one moment. But first, if you're missing your weekly dose of Kate or looking for a community of women considering whether they should stay or go in their marriage, there are a few ways you can get further support and connect with Kate and other like-minded women. First, you can follow and connect with Kate over on Instagram, and you can find her at the Divorce Survival Guide, or you can join Kate's free Facebook community. You can find that by just going to facebook.com and searching for the group, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And we'll be sure to include both links in this episode's show notes, which you can conveniently find on Kate's website at kateanthony.com. All right, now that all of the housekeeping items are set, let's jump into this week's episode. This week, Kate is joined by guest Tracy Poizner, and they are talking all about being a stepmom. Tracy is the founder of the Essential Stepmom Podcast, and in this episode, Kate and Tracy cover a lot of ground, including becoming a stepmom, some ways in which you can prepare yourself for if or when your ex-husband introduces a stepmother into your child's life, and they discuss step-parenting from the perspective of your children, and how you can create a safe environment for them to feel comfortable and loved within their newly formed blended family. So without further ado, here is the conversation between Kate Anthony and Tracy Poizner.
Tracy, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about all things step parenting, blending, stepping.
Yeah. Stepping in it.
Yeah,
overstepping.
Stepping. Right, exactly. Right. Where to
Thank you.
step.
It's great to be here. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to your audience.
Yeah. So, okay. We talked about that there are kind of three avenues that we really want to talk about and cover in this conversation. One is how to be a stepmom, sort of being the outsider stepping into established yet separated family.
Yeah.
And then there's how to prepare for the fact that your ex-husband is maybe introducing a stepmother and a new woman, and how to deal with that whole thing. And then also from the perspective of the children and making sure that the bond is, there's no choosing, there's loyalty, like pulling and loyalty. So, I mean, it's such an important and robust conversation. So let's just start with being a stepmom, right? Let's start with what is that? You are a stepmom.
I am. I'm a biological mom too, but I've been a stepmom for 14-ish years now. And boy, it just keeps changing. It doesn't ever get absolutely straightforward, but it did settle in the way the experts say that it does in 7 to 10 years. That is a really long time.
Wow. It takes 7 to 10 years to settle into.
To really gel and it's long. And it doesn't mean that it's absolutely fraught the entire way, but I can tell you that what happened to me is that we spent many years dealing with issues like long distance parenting, because my husband's kids lived really far away. I never thought I would have really any role in their life because they lived 3 hours away. I mean, we saw them a couple of weekends a year, actually.
Wow.
So it was a big surprise when they all eventually, one at a time, came to live here with us full time. We have been the serial parents of an only child 4 times in a row.
Wow.
But yes, that was a total surprise. Didn't see that coming.
Right.
Certainly when we got together.
And that's interesting, right? Because I think that that's important, that when you're coming into something like this, relationship, you don't count on it being what it is.
That's right.
So if you are, and I've heard this story over and over again, right? I hear people say like, well, he didn't have the kids when we got married, and all of a sudden they're all in my house.
That's right.
Right. You have to actually plan for that to be an eventuality. That
I don't know if you can even plan for it. I don't know if anybody could plan for it, but you have to know in the back of your mind that if you have to know that it could happen on the off chance. And people get divorced, and very often you've fallen for a guy, possibly even a woman, because obviously there are lots of 2-mom households in my stepmom community. Mm-hmm. But, the ex, the mom who's not in the picture, is very often a troubled person emotionally or behaviorally or whatever it might be. Sometimes she takes up with another guy and they decide to move out of state, and bang, you're left with the kids. Or there are situations in my group where, biomom has ended up in jail, and bang, you have the kids.
Oh no, we have that too. Yeah, we have. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Things that you can't predict or really prepare for. Biomom gets really sick, and bang, you have the kids. Yes, it's a possibility. And it certainly happened not for those reasons, but for reasons of kids maturing and wanting to spend more time with dad and whatever. But, we had long periods of parental alienation. We had court issues. We had all that really difficult, dramatic stuff for so many years. And finally, when the youngest had finally moved here, after, I don't know if it was 6 months or a year or something, I woke up one day and I just sort of said, I think this is the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I think I think that was the rapids, and we're kind of done with that. And it's not that then you have life stuff. Then you have children maturing into young adults and going to university and all the, relationships breaking up. I mean, there's life that happens, but the heavy lifting part of step parenting, I think was done. And I felt that I had learned so much and I had grown so much, and I wanted to be able to share what was helpful in our family. And I wanted to almost codify what was helpful. Like, did it only work for us, or does this work all around? And I did that by connecting with hundreds of stepmoms to find out whether I was onto something. Like, is this a thing that works for everybody most of the time, at least, or was this just something that was a one-off in our household? But you just mentioned preparing to be a stepmom or preparing to bring another woman into the extended family of your kids. And there's one little piece of advice that I think hits both of those things, that, as you said, you're stepping into an established family in a way. And in the same way that you don't really want another woman stepping into your family, as a stepmom, you don't get to step into someone else's family, or you don't have to feel a kind of pressure to step into somebody else's family. What you're doing with a new partner is making a new family.
Right.
And you're inviting those children energetically into your new family. And the reason that works better than stepping into an established family is that there's no room for 2 moms in an established family, unless you happen to be a 2-mom household who love each other. It's a different story.
Right.
But we're not wired as human beings to have 2 mothers. Like, we have no evolutionary inner emotional wiring for that. But we do have a way to understand having 2 families, because that's what happens when you get married. you become a part of another family. So we have thousands of years of evolutionary experience with becoming part of another family without losing your first family. And that feels natural to us.
Okay.
So even though kids are not, they're not getting married and they're not old, and it doesn't matter. You have an inner sense of the fact that your mom has a family and your dad has a family, and both of those they're part somehow of each other's families. And that feels natural.
Yeah. How do you, I think it's interesting. I actually want to back up to your own experience of what was your role when you were dealing with alienation and all those difficult issues, right?
Yeah.
Within your family structure. As the stepmother, what was your role in that, right? Because I can imagine there is supporting your husband, there is supporting the children, but as you have said, and what, you told me in other conversations is that, you're not mom, right? And it's not your job to be a parent. Right. And so, but if you are kind of the only quote, sane or stable parent, mother figure, like where does that leave what is your role in that?
I think everybody has to feel into it in the way that works for their family. But for some women, they can kind of feel into the role of auntie or aunt, however you pronounce that, like to be like a beloved family member, but who is not a parent. For families where there's more of a, let's say, easy, affectionate relationship, if it's easy for you and the children to reciprocate affection, then it might the aunt role might feel right, that you're a trusted person, you're part of the family in some way, and yet you don't have like the karmic responsibility for how this child turns out in life. You're not overriding parenting decisions. Yeah. Because you're smarter or better, or you're not going to take your sister aside and say, I'm not going to allow you to whatever. It doesn't happen, right? Like your aunt could advocate for you. Your aunt might say, your mom is like this or your dad is like that, but there's an understanding that there's a love bond between you and, at least the dad, let's say in the case of the stepmom. Yeah. And that you're not going to be somehow overriding the parenting. You're supplying something extra. If in a case where you don't have that kind of affection, which is in my case, we're 14 years in, so let's say we're more comfortable with each other, but I was somebody who they knew and liked, but they didn't spend that much time with me. And so we weren't kind of huggy, affectionate in that way, like physically close to each other. Right. And I was always kind of an advisor or a mentor, kind of Yoda figure or something, like the karate teacher and the Karate Kid or something like that. Like you're somebody who has a perspective about this child over and above what their parents see. Right. And you can advocate for them with the parents, and you can give them advice. You can give them life advice, and they trust you as an adult, but you're less, maybe feeling less like a family and more like an important person. You can be most of us grew up, let's say, with a best friend or a neighbor friend, the next door friend, that you would spend a lot of time at their house, and their mom was like, in a way, like a second mom to you, that she would keep you on the straight and narrow and break up your fights with her kid and put Band-Aids on your knee or whatever. But she was sending you home at the end of the day, right? So you trust her, she's nearby, you love her, she's watching you grow up, you feel close to somebody, you feel like they're a protective person for you, a safe person. So there are so many ways to be a beloved person in your stepchild's life, a beloved adult, a hockey coach, a Girl Guide leader, or a Boy Scout troop leader. There are people who you could spend a lot of time with and love and respect that aren't the mom, with the mom energy. So how do you, as a stepmom who also has bio
biological kids, right? How do you blend like rules and, let's say you have biological kids and in your house, you've raised your kids a certain way with certain rules and this, that, and the other, right? And then, let's say you have limits on screen time or whatever it is. And then your, new partner also has a child who has completely different rules, different set of rules with their mom. And then they're in your house. It's like, whose rules apply? How do you have different rules for different kids? But if you're not the parent, right, to this kid, like this is where shit gets crazy and crazy.
Oh yeah.
And I think also where strain enters into the marital relationship, right? Because it's like a shit show. What?
Well, I think there are two kind of situations. One of them is where everybody really lives all the time under the same roof or most of the time.
Right.
And one is where, let's say it could happen that, that as a mom, your kids are there all the time except for every other weekend.
Yeah.
And that your partner's kids are coming every other weekend. And so they are more like guests, let's say, in your home. But it's really, really important that...
Well, there's also 50-50. I mean, I know that in my own family, I have 50% custody of my son. 50% of the time he's at his dad's. His dad and his wife, my ex and his wife have a child that they raise, that they have full custody of. And she has a son that she has 50% custody.
Yeah, you told me about this.
There's just like a complete,
oh my God.
But I have other, I know, clients and friends who have, they've got 50-50 of their kids and their ex has 50-50 and their kids are just rotating in and out of both houses.
So I have to say something here, which is so important. This situation is so brand new to humanity. This has never existed before in all of human history.
Yeah.
That there have been, like the stepmom of the fairy tales or the movies or whatever is the lady who marries your dad when your mother passes away.
Right.
There has never, ever before been a situation where half of all children are living between two homes, basically, that there are parental figures in two homes, which by and large don't see eye to eye about the rules.
Right.
So this is like sociologically, I can't believe that there's not more conversation about this because it's incredible how widespread this is. My understanding is that 50% of all children under the age of 18 will have had an experience of, living with a parent and the parent's partner.
Yeah.
And so we're now in the second generation because some of the adults that I work with had already this experience.
Yeah.
Like they lived this as kids and now their kids are living the same, but there's not more than that. Your grandmother did not live in two homes, right?
Right.
So we're just learning how to readjust our whole way of being in the world and finding what are the strategies that make this successful in the long term. And part of what I do is talk to adults about how it was for them and what they've taken away from that and how they're doing things the same or differently or whatever, because I don't know, the proof is in the pudding, right? We have now millions of adults who lived this experience and who can tell us in their adult way, reflecting on how it was for them as kids.
Yeah.
My own stepkids are very articulate about, how things were for them when they were younger. But the secret answer is that each parent has to parent their own kids. And that, of course, they have to talk together to try to understand each other's parenting style. I don't know if you can necessarily or even want to change your parenting style, but certainly everybody has something to learn about parenting. There's nobody, we are mostly parenting by reflex.
None of us knows what the fuck we're doing.
Exactly. We're either repeating the way we were raised or we're doing on purpose the opposite of how we were raised, right?
Right.
So it's important that the rules are coming from the biological parent. And kids also understand this because you go to Johnny's house and Johnny has different rules than the ones that you have at home. And you're on the playground or at school, it's very clear that all the kids don't have the same rules. So when you are the parent who is more, let's say, a little bit more strict, for lack of a better word, and the other kids get to stay up later or have more screen time or whatever, the answer is, I'm your mom. I'm not their mom and I'm not their dad. They have a mom and a dad who make the rules for them. And I make the rules for you because I'm responsible for you and for your wellness.
And is the response, because there's the impetus to be like, my house, my rules. So when you come to my house, when you're under my roof, you'll follow the rules that are in my house. Is that fair or confusing to a child? Should a child?
I'll tell you what it is. It's the highway to the 62% divorce rate in second marriages with children. There's a 62% divorce rate. So if you're not making the long-term peace and happiness of your home the priority, then you're bowling for the gutter. And I think that the problem, the other thing that people don't understand is that my house, my rules, it's going to go my way. But someday the kids are going to be old enough to flip you a giant finger and say, I'm so out of here. I never want to see you again. And they do. And they can.
Right.
And if that's not what you were aiming for, then you've been pointing yourself a little bit in the wrong direction from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Kids do say, I never could stand that this lady was totally on us all the time, telling me what to do, and I wasn't allowed to do this and that, and I wasn't at home in my own house, and who needs that? My dad wasn't sticking up for me because some random person, as far as you're concerned, some random person is overriding your dad's rules, and he's letting them do that.
Right.
That's what's not fair.
Right. Or your mom's rules, right? Even if you, the dad may be more passive and it's the mom's rules in the mom's house, and then I've seen every configuration of that, but I get it. But I appreciate that. I think that's really, really important.
So, if you want to say, you can have the my house, my rules conversation with your spouse and say this is not going to work for me if you are not going to put any boundaries around your kids. This is not going to be workable. You have to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. But then it's on him to hold some boundaries for his kids. It's not on you to do that in his place.
Yes.
And I mean, that brings up the whole guilty parenting piece, which is another whole podcast in itself. But it's real, right? You actually do have guilty feelings about your part, whatever it is, in the breakup of the whole world of these children.
Yeah. And
you are not moving from house to house every week and leaving your stuff behind and having to stop what you're doing, and your friends are having a party and you can't go. They don't, the parents are not living that experience. The kids are in that pickle now because of your, the failure of your relationship, and whether or not you did everything you could to save it, or how hard you might have tried, or that you chose to have children with an unsuitable partner, or that whatever it might be, you're carrying some conscious or unconscious guilty feelings, and you don't want to feel harsh with your, with your kids in terms of rules.
Yeah.
But the thing that you have to know is that what they need from you is not to have what they need from you is not the sunshine and unicorns part of let's play catch in the backyard and we'll go for an ice cream cone and then we'll read story. I mean, all of that is wonderful, but what they really need from you is the boundaries, the structure. That's what gives them the security, because for children, all of their security in the world is wrapped up in their parents. Children are not capable of taking care of themselves, quite literally, until they're at least 15, 16 at the youngest end. And if you can't make them feel that you're holding them in a container that protects them from themselves, from their own impulses, from exaggerating things that aren't good for them, in the same way that you keep them from running across the road. The teenage equivalent of not letting your kids run across the road is not letting them spend 24 hours a day in front of the screen, whatever they want to be doing, or like eating the whole box of cookies for dinner, whatever it might be in your house.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
They're going to test a parent about that, and they're not going to stop testing until they find the walls.
Yep.
So as a parent, you have to think like, I want to have this nice experience every other week with them or whatever it might be. But you also have to think about what they need actually from you, and what's the best way for you to provide that, instead of saying what I want to be is a buddy.
Yeah.
And, that's what feels good to me. But every situation needs a kind of good cop, bad cop. And you can't say, I've decided I'm going to be the good cop, and the parent in the other household will have to be the bad cop because I'm going to take up all the good cop. And it doesn't work that way.
No.
You have to share it.
And I don't know that people do that consciously, right?
No,
but that might
indeed.
end up being, right? That might end up being the way that it sort of plays out.
Well, I remember how hard it was for my husband to ever have to do any kind of discipline or reprimanding or anything like that. When, his kids would be here for such a short time. He just didn't want to have to do that. And there's also this idea of, take me back to mom's. I'm not staying here.
Right.
There's that kind of pushback. And then it just provides an opportunity for the divorced parents to have more conflict, instead of, obviously that they should be still supporting each other. And that's so hard. It's hard.
It is. All right. Let's just sort of switch gears for a minute.
Sure.
So how does you're divorced, you're both dating, all of a sudden there's a new woman in his life, or, your ex's life, and she's sort of coming in as a stepmom, potentially, or definitely. How do you, as the bio mom, prepare for that? Are you supposed to, this is a question I get a lot in my group and with my clients, like, should I like call her and like have coffee? Like, or I get women being like, she's not my kid's mom. Like, a woman will come in and I think trying to find her place, and she'll like buy presents for the kids for their birthday. Right. And then the bio mom gets really fucking pissed because they feel like their territory just got pissed on.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And, my response is always like, the more people to love your kids, the better. Right. This is a woman who's coming in. I don't think she knows what her place is. And she's being lovely. Like, if that's what she's doing, like, yay. Right. But so how do we, as the bio mom, how do bio moms sort of prepare themselves and sort of like deal with this from an emotional standpoint, logistical standpoint, communication standpoint? Like, what's our job?
Well, first of all, I would say that this exact moment is such an important growth node for a woman in her personal growth. And again, this is, if we're talking about something that's new, a new situation to the human race, to share your children with another woman. Imagine how primal that is. Imagine what it's like for there was something in the paper recently about somebody got killed by a grizzly bear who unwittingly got between the mama and her cubs, right?
Right.
So this is going to activate in you some incredibly primal, irrational, protective stuff around your kids. Like, stay the fuck away from my children,
Yep.
Like, that's what it's going to look like. So some of it is about like ex-wife anger, about that gets all kind of inflamed, that your asshole partner is now getting another woman. That is going to inflame your negative feelings, likely, about that person. Some of it is going to activate the bio mom insecurity that every mother feels, the secret insecurity of every mother that someone else could potentially do this better than me. And holy shit, like, other people are going to see this woman being a better mother than me. Like that's just the worst. And I tell this to my clients all the time, like, these poor insecure stepmoms don't understand that the bio mom on the other side is just as much, if not more, insecure.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when my ex's first sort of long-term relationship out after our marriage, And my son came home and he was like, Sarah made me a treasure hunt and it was a treasure map and I had to find presents. And it was like this whole big elaborate. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
like
I've never done
anything like that. And they wouldn't even occur to me. And she's like, and it was totally, and then I was finally like, how wonderful that my son gets that. But my first instinct was like, oh my God, I'm the worst mom ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she wasn't a mom, she's just a really creative, cool chick.
Exactly. Exactly. So you have to at least recognize in yourself that this is a place of growth for you to be able to say,
not about
I can do this. This is not about me. And of course, I work with all kinds of actual techniques, like, brain gym stuff and tapping stuff, if people aren't familiar with those things, get to know that with meditation, with gratitude journaling. Like, we work a lot on your personal emotional needs, because this is something that you have to clear this inside yourself. What could be better than that your child has now a nice, creative, generous stepmom? You definitely don't want them to have a bitchy, hard to get along with. Like, that would be awful, right?
Exactly, right. She's, by the way, they're probably going to get a stepmom. Like, that's just, statistically speaking, that's probably going to happen.
Speaking, that's it, right? So you have to do all this kind of self-care stuff on yourself.
Yeah.
And know that, like, I'm having a really hard time with this. And I understand that, objectively speaking, it's a positive thing for my children to have a loving, supportive, additional adult in their life. And if they came home telling me that at school they did this amazing thing and they went on a treasure hunt and it was so much fun, you'd go, wow, great teacher, eh?
Right. Right.
So
exactly.
you have to know that your children, like, love is not a finite thing. There's not a bucket of love, and that if somebody else gets some, that there's less for you. Your children have a big heart, and there is zero chance that they're ever going to love this woman more or want to switch moms or something. Like, it doesn't ever, ever, ever happen like that. And yes, you can maybe even learn something from her that you didn't know. Like you said, wow, what a cool idea. And over time, you're going to see her doing things and you're going to say to your kid, should we do that at home? Like, and I hear all the time the stepmom saying, oh, we did this cool thing and now suddenly mom started doing that. And I say, bravo. Like, what's the problem? You taught her something. It's fantastic. Like,
the kids liked it. She listened to them. Like,
exactly.
Yeah,
like, let her learn something that she didn't know. That's perfect. That's terrific. But it's important to understand that, I studied something called family constellation therapy, which is so profoundly interesting. I can't even tell you.
Me too.
So from Bert Hellinger. So this is about what they call the orders of love. The idea that we have deeply ingrained loyalty to our ancestors, be they recent ones like your parents or remote ones like your great uncle or who you never met, right?
Right.
That we have energetic ties and loyalties.
Mm-hmm.
And that mom and dad are connected with the idea of unconditional love and acceptance, and it's forever. And mom and dad are the ones who we spend our whole lives seeking the approval of. And every therapist in the whole world will tell you that all of their clients are working on that.
Right.
And absolutely. Nobody goes to a therapist to say, I never felt good enough for my third grade teacher.
Right. Or my stepmom.
I never felt good enough for my little league coach.
Right.
Like, no, it's only ever about your mother and your father.
Yep.
So you have to know with certainty that all that your child is interested in is feeling loved by you.
Yes.
Feeling safe, feeling loved, and feeling seen.
Yeah.
And they are not ever going to transfer that need to another person. Not ever.
Yeah. Right.
And what I say to the stepmoms is that this child, there are a lot of cases where there's a dramatically bad parent in the other household, whether it's a mother or a father, and the kids are clinging in a way to a good representation of mother, who is the stepmom, who is the loving, supporting person, and not the crazy, ranting, violent, abusive one that they see every other weekend, or less. And still my answer is, they don't really want you to be their mom. They want their mom to be a better mom.
Right. Exactly. Oh, we have that situation in our family, and it's so tragic.
Yeah.
Because you want that, right? I mean, I know that I want that for this child. I want him to transfer that need and desire to his stepmom, because she's safe and loving, and she is like right there for him.
Yeah.
But instead, he's got it for his bio mom, who's not.
Yeah.
And that's where that can kind of turn around to be unfortunate.
Of course. But it's so important that we remember that what happens to kids when they sort of fall over the edge into actually loving the step parent, and for a split second secretly wishing that you were their mother, or their father. There's an inner mechanism, because of these orders of love, there's an inner mechanism that yanks them away from that and makes them feel incredibly guilty. Like that is a line that we don't allow ourselves to cross. And when you do, you feel guilty and you want to punish yourself for that. And that's where kids start acting out. And I hear this all the time. Everything was going great. We've had such a great relationship. We were having such a nice day. Everyone was playing, and all of a sudden something snapped, and he started to be really mean to me. And he was throwing food at me and calling me bad names. And and then he was crying, and then he had a tantrum. And I can tell you exactly what happened. This exact kind of moment where a child says, wouldn't it be nice if this was my family all the time and you were my mom?
Yeah.
And then it's like a slap upside the head, and they have to punish themselves. And they punish themselves by acting out so that one of the adults will punish them. And sometimes they even do this in mom's house, because what they want most of all is to know that their mother loves them. And so the best way to punish them is to behave in a way that causes your mother to be angry and reject you. That's the punishment. And so you can say, you cannot win by encouraging or by discouraging your child from loving the other parent. You want them to know that it's okay with you, that there's enough room in your heart to love all the people who are nice to you, and that they don't have to restrict themselves to this idea that you can say, I know that you love me all the time, even when you're not here. And it's okay that you love Nancy or Susie or Janie or whatever the stepmom's name is. It's okay to love her too. She's really nice to you. She's a wonderful person. And I know that your heart is big enough to love everybody. You don't have to feel bad about that. That's the way to open them up and allow them to kind of breathe easy. But otherwise, kids are going to, at some point, have this conflict inside themselves. Loyalty is not about, which house do I like to be at more, or who do I believe, which parent is telling me the truth, or whose rules should I follow. That's not loyalty. That's conditioning. That's unconscious manipulation. That's a kind of subtle emotional blackmail being played out onto the kids. Loyalty is generated by the child deep inside. On a very unconscious level. And it's really hard to fix, because the behaviors are so unaccountable, like that the child is really looking to be a bad child, because that's a better cover than being a child who would betray the loyalty to their parent.
That is so deeply complex. And
it is.
It's so, like, as you're talking, it's just resonating so much to the situation that we have in my extended family. And it's so, it's so tragic and so difficult. And, when you're the only sort of safe parental, home or unit, you can do as much as you can do, but it's so hard to offset the damage.
Well, and really what the child needs most of is
therapy, a lot of therapy.
A lot of therapy, but they they need to fill up their container with, I'm going to say dad in this case. I mean, of course, it could be mom, but they need the biological parent in the new partnership to be fully present and for them to get all of their needs met by that parent.
Yes.
Because whatever you're filling up as a step parent is like kind of secondary. It's the icing on the cake. And if there's no cake, there's not really the icing can't have the value that you're looking for. And the need is so bottomless that I know it can be really exhausting where you have a child who's really suffering from a toxic parent.
Yeah. And what's even, I think, harder in these situations is that often the quote safe parent is the one that does get the brunt of the pushback and the acting out, right? So it's even harder for that parent to be able to be that container.
Yeah.
Right?
I would say it's
getting pushed and kicked and screamed at the most.
Exactly. And it's really important for a parent in that kind of situation to learn the emerging parenting skills that are related to it's very counterintuitive in terms of our reflex to punish bad behavior, but you really have to learn how kids heal themselves from these difficult emotions. And that is with a lot of, I would just say tantruming, for lack of a better word, and how hard that is as a parent to handle. But there's a way to manage that so that it fulfills its purpose and it's not an endless hamster wheel of tantruming that doesn't ever go anywhere. There's a organization, I surely they didn't invent this, but I know that they have lots of support and videos and courses for parents called handinhandparenting.org.
Okay.
And Patty Whipfler, who's the founder of that organization, she's been doing this work for like 40 years. She's amazing. And she's sort of encapsulated the whole theory in a book called Listen. It's just called Listen by Patty Whipfler. But that is really a beautiful combination of techniques that together form a strategy to really use nature's way. Children are doing their healing. They're very intuitive, they know what they need. And in the same way that you or I might cry at a sappy commercial. Yeah. And, there was something that needed to come out. It's not the fluffy bunnies that are making you cry, right? You're hooking your emotions onto something that with an outlet. And likewise, these kids are hooking their big emotions onto something really small and insignificant, like not being able to have a second ice cream cone or whatever stupid thing it might be, but that it provokes a big drama with a lot of tears. And this is a very cleansing thing. So it's important to receive that in a precise way so that it does its job and not that it was just meaningless. It's another half an hour of crying that you couldn't stand and it's going to go again and again. It can be really a cleansing kind of thing. So it's important for parents who are being put upon with so much difficult behavior from these kids who are really needy that they kind of up-level their parenting skills.
This is all so important.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is because, on the one hand, we're like, blending and co-parenting and step parenting and all of that. And it sounds sort of on the surface of it like something that we do every day, even though it's brand new, right?
Yeah.
But when you get down into the nitty gritty of it and into how it actually happens and what's actually the layers and the ripples and all of that, it's just so deeply complex.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it really is. And I mean, most women will tell you it's certainly the hardest thing that they've ever done.
Yeah.
Not to say that parenting is easy by itself, but this is just so many more kinds of complex.
Yeah. And, for many women, like my son's stepmother, right? I told you, I have so much empathy for her because she's a biological mom to her own son that she's a stepmom to a kid that she has full custody of with my ex. And then she's a stepmom to my son, right? So she's playing 3 different roles.
Yeah. That's That's a cluster.
I mean, she's like a stepmom to my kid, right? Where she's not actually his, she's not responsible for him in any way. She's a stepmom to another kid that she is more responsible for. And then she's bio mom. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, full kudos to her for whatever, seriously. For taking that on. And I don't know what to say about the meaning of how someone could attract such a complicated situation in their life. But, they lucky that she seems to be doing a great job, and lucky kids who have such a person in their life to take care of them.
Yeah. I mean, truly, they're all very lucky. She's wonderful in all of her roles. I just don't know how she keeps her sanity in doing.
Me too. It's hard work. And, she's got the right constitution for it. And maybe she's like making a priority of caring for herself in order to be able to be there for all those people.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, I'm not going to speak for her, but I think it's definitely been a journey for her, because it's a lot, but she's doing, and she, from my perspective, I'm grateful for her.
Yeah,
grateful
that's
for her.
Wonderful.
So, I mean, I feel like we could, there's so much more we could cover, but in the interest of time, where can people find you and learn more about your work and all of that?
They can do those things at my website, which is essentialstepmom.com.
There you go.
And there is actually right on the main page of my website, there is a free download available. I think it's called Easy Ways to Level Up as a Stepmom. Okay. And it's full of just little tiny practical tips, little micro steps that can make all the difference to, finding your place, to getting the right vibe in your family, to not overstepping. Little wee things, but I think it's the little things that matter. So they're welcome to download that.
Essentialstepmom.com.
That's it.
All right. And all the links will be in the show notes for everybody. Tracy, thank you so much for coming on and lending your wisdom.
Thank you. This has been a delightful conversation. It's great talking with you.
I really appreciate your depth of understanding and of the complexity.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at The Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.